Hey everyone, and welcome to the 22nd episode of Slime Time, the official Dragon Quest Dragon's Den podcast. This is Palladium 3. And as you don't hear, there's no Liam. Liam's not here today. This is kind of a birthday gift for him, pun intended. Kind of recording this secretly, so surprise, Liam. There's a
surprise!
Yay! Liam, I hope you know that voice. You definitely should, because I went out and tried to get somebody that most listeners should know to by now. I invited Mr. Austin King, co-host of the wildly popular Dragon Quest FM podcast. Hey, Austin.
Hey, everybody. Sorry that I kind of jumped ahead and ruined your surprise.
Oh, no problem. When this pops up on Liam's podcast app, that's going to be the first surprise anyway. So already there'll be a surprise.
Yeah.
Well, thanks
awesome.
for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Yeah, I wanted to bring Austin on here, talk about a game our former guest Nawaria talked about, Dragon Quest X. But this time you're going to hear some maybe less expert testimony and more of the Florida Man experience. And if you don't get that reference, just pause the podcast right now and just Google Florida Man and be prepared to laugh. But before we get into all things Dragon Quest X, let's get to know Austin a little bit more. All right, so Austin, I know, was it this year or late last year, you changed your Twitter handle to Dragon Quaston?
Yes.
Dragon Quaston?
Yes.
I mean, I'm Florida Man, but I do get it. So what exactly did you change your name to? What prompted that?
Yeah, so this may be a boring story. I don't know. I'll let people listening judge. But I always wanted the Austin King Twitter handle ever since I joined Twitter, which I think was like 2012, 2013. But this guy has it, and he didn't really seem to use Twitter very much. Every so often I check back and kind of like stalk him online, and it says he hasn't used his account since like 2016. So I'm just like, come on, man, like let the account go. So maybe I can grab that one. Yeah. And the only reason I even had Twitter in the first place was because I'd written a book at the time back in I think it was published in 2012. And I was told you have to get a Twitter account. If you want your book to do well, you have to get a Twitter account. And so I started it, and back then my Twitter handle was like Austin King Book or something like that, since the Twitter handle was taken. And I found out that Book Twitter, like no offense to anybody listening that's part of Book Twitter, but Book Twitter is kind of boring. It's just people like posting like motivational things or like talking about writing, and like talking about writing isn't necessarily like the most interesting topic for me. And honestly, even though I was on there to like promote a book, all I wanted to talk about was video games. And so I actually, there was like a 3-year period that I had a Twitter account but never used it after that. And when I came back on, I was like, I don't want to talk about books because that's kind of boring to me. I want to talk about video games. And so somewhere around in there is when I got _Austin_King. Which looks ugly and it's terrible to say. Like even just now having to say that, I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's awful. So Dragon Quest Austin, which was like the name of my blog and everything I started like about a year and a half ago, was too many characters. So I thought Dragon Quaston, it kind of, it doesn't necessarily look pretty, but it kind of like smushes together nice. And so I decided to go with that one since, most people on Twitter that I talk to now, I just talk about video games and Dragon Quest a bunch, so Dragon Quaston kind of seemed to go with what I use Twitter for anyway.
Hey, now, talking about writing a book, talking about Dragon Quest, you've got your Dragon Quest book you said that is finished, almost finished?
Yes, actually, it is finished. There is the artist that was working on illustrations and like cover and all that stuff sent me like the drafts and stuff to look at just the other day. So I've been out of town, but so I haven't had a chance to look at it. But yeah, the book is finished. The cover may actually have been finished this morning. I'm not sure. I haven't gone back to check everything, but the cover may be done. And I'm hoping for like a late June, early July release date. I'm not sure. I don't have a release date for it yet. But yeah, it's just called the Dragon Quest book. And it's The first half, little less than half of the book, is kind of like the year I went through playing every mainline Dragon Quest game. So it's about that. It's kind of got some some history of the series, but it's not really about that. It's about like loving Dragon Quest and being a fan. And so then the last half of the book, a little over half of the book, is actually interviews with people within the Western fan community, reflections that people have written. You're in there.
Yeah.
So quick shout out there. Yeah, you're in there. Woodus is actually in there as well. And just people from all over the Dragon Quest community. I tried to get it from all over. I actually had open submissions where people could send me stuff because I wanted it to be one of those things that I didn't want it just to be like prominent members of the community. I wanted it to be like new fans too, to share their stories. And so I tried to just open it up to anybody and put as many as I realistically could put in the book. Tried to put in there without it, and of course, without it getting too like repetitive and stuff, because some people, their stories were a little similar, But for the most part, yeah, and it was really cool, and I felt like I got to know just people in the community a lot better because of them sharing their stories with me. And that's kind of my hope with the book, is that people who read it, they kind of feel even more like they're a part of something bigger than themselves,
That's cool. And speaking of the fandom, you're there, obviously. You co-host your own podcast that I love, Dragon Quest FM, with your friend BJ. How'd that come about? What prompted starting that?
So at some point in 2018, it was actually after beating all of Dragon Quest 11, or maybe I wasn't even done with it yet. I can't really remember, but at some point I was like, hey BJ, I'm gonna play every mainline Dragon Quest game. Like, I've been putting it out long enough. I finally had I had missed a lot of the mainline games, like the DS ones, because I didn't have a DS. So I was like, I'm finally just going to give in. I'm going to buy all this stuff, and I'm just going to invest a lot of time and money into it, but I'm just going to play all of them. And at first, I think his reaction was kind of like, wow, really? And he had played, at the time, I think he had actually played more of them than me. I think he had played like 4 of the mainline games already. And so he was kind of telling me like some different places to maybe start. But at the time, I was in Tennessee visiting family because it was around the holidays. It's getting close to like Christmas, New Year's, all that. And so I didn't have all the stuff that I was like buying, to play the DS games on or anything like that. So I was like, hey, I'll just download the mobile versions of the first 3 games, the Erdrick trilogy, and ended up just playing through all of them over like the holidays, like while I was up in Tennessee on my phone, which is still the only mobile games I think I have been able to play and beat. Because usually with playing any game on mobile, it's like an hour and I'm done. So I did that, and then sometime in like January, BJ, he co-hosts another podcast called Geek to Geek, and he was like, hey, we're trying to get a website started, a video game website for Geek to Geek, where we just can talk about video games outside of the podcast. And they didn't have like regular blogs. It was mostly just stuff related to the podcast. And he was like, would you be interested in I think part of it was he was sick of me just texting him about it all the time. And he was like, put your thoughts on the internet. So I started DragonQuestAustin.com. And then, a few months, half a year later, I guess, as it was getting close to me beating all the games, and it was very apparent that like Dragon Quest was going to be like a part of my life forever. BJ was like, hey, why don't we just do a podcast? Because at the time, the only other podcast that was around was Puff Puff Hour, which, people listening probably know. It's a pretty like hilarious podcast, but they were like, it was toward the end of that podcast. Like they seemed to have ended their run. There wasn't a lot of, there was like a couple of episodes that year, I think, but they were kind of winding it down. And so he was like, hey, why don't we do this? And you can just talk about your blog stuff in a podcast format. And I was like, oh, I don't know, man. Like, that just seems like a lot of time. I don't know if I can do it. I have 3 young kids. And so at first I was very opposed to the idea, because I was just like, I don't know. Like, nobody's going to listen to that. Like, I don't feel like I have anything like really good to say about Dragon Quest. I just like it a lot. And so, but then eventually I gave in, and Dragon Quest FM was born, and somehow I come up with something to say about Dragon Quest every single week.
You've been going, 53 weeks strong? 54 at this point, something like that?
Yeah, a little. Our first episode was actually on May 27th, 2019. So it's been just over a year now. We've had, there's only been, I believe, two weeks that weren't new episodes. Like we still put stuff out, but they were kind of like compilations from like Patreon minisodes or things like that. So we still
a couple clip shows.
Yeah, so we've still had something like theoretically new out every single week. We may just have not recorded something new every single week since then. But yeah, we always try to, take the time to do it. Sometimes BJ, is out of town or whatever, so I'll go alone, or my wife filled in for
I remember that one.
Yeah, so but yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I still keep up with the blog. Right now, going back to the subject of Dragon Quest X, I've been trying to write up a lot of just kind of English how-tos on my blog, really because it's kind of hard to find stuff. If you just Google it in English, it's hard to find answers because so many of the guides are in Japanese, and then you have to translate them. And so I kind of just wrote them as I was figuring stuff out, because it was stuff that like I would try to Google and I couldn't like either find an answer for just by Googling like a phrase, or if I could find it, it was either outdated or it was a YouTube video. And nothing against like YouTube videos. It's just like, for me personally, I'm like a reader. So like I'd rather read like a quick like paragraph or two telling me how to do something than watch like the hour-long video showing me how to do it, because then I have to play through that hour of content myself, if that makes sense. It's
I get it. I'm not a YouTube watcher very much at all.
Yeah, so it's the repetitiveness of it. It's not anything against any YouTubers who do that kind of thing, because honestly, it's been a real lifesaver for figuring out Dragon Quest X quite a few times. But it's hard for me to watch that like hour of content and then play through that hour of content again myself.
Completely get it. Hey, your guides have been very handy for me, because in talking with others, I've realized that this whole like free amount that you get on Switch it's quite new. It's within the past year, and a lot of the Dragon Quest 10 people that I know, there's a lot of people that post on Woodus's Dragon's Den in the Dragon Quest 10 forums, but almost all of them are PC people, or they've been playing it for years, so they've already got their Krista account set up for Japanese money and this and this and this. So when you say, hey, I hear there's a free Switch trial, they're like, what? No. We've had our account for 4 years. We can't help you there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've done a great job of. Yeah, I got into it because reading through yours, it made it seem so easy. And,
well, thank you. I'm glad I could help. Thank you.
I'll spend 10-15 minutes reading through yours and sitting there side by side, rather than watching that 1 hour YouTube video to try to get that one thing. So yeah, I'm the same way with video content. Like, break it down. Give me the 2-sentence summary.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been trying to work on, and I'm working on getting just kind of like a separate section on my blog there where it's just all Dragon Quest X kind of quick guides like that. I always try to link to people, like the Woodus forums, or like Ryan Molina, who's helped me quite a bit with Dragon Quest X, and started his own like fan site, I believe about a month ago.
Check that out. That's
ryanquest.com. So I try to link to things like that, just because those people have helped me out too, and trying to just spread the love, and also send other people there who maybe read my blog first and just want to get into some more Dragon Quest content that they can't find on my site or whatever.
Definitely. Speaking of Dragon Quest content, what are some of your favorite or least favorite games in the series, since you beat them all in a year?
So 11 is probably my favorite. It's the one within that year. I beat it on the PS4, platinum trophy, like played the crap out of it, even I tried to get 100% bestiary, all that kind of stuff. And then I also played 11S within that year time frame, I guess, since it came out in September. It was right around in there. And then I played the 3DS version, and it's all in Japanese, but I haven't beaten it yet. I haven't even made it to the first set of credits, partially because it's in Japanese. It's kind of slow going, and then I got distracted by Dragon Quest X, and it's hard to play. It's hard for me, at least, to play 2 games in a language I don't understand.
Definitely.
So
one's hard enough.
Yeah, so the 3DS version of 11 has kind of been shelved for now. But I believe I got to, I think Rab is my newest party member in my playthrough of the 3DS version of 11. I don't think I got Jade as an official party member yet, but Rab is there, like, it's in Octagonia and everything, and it's all of that part of 11. So 11's probably my favorite. But I love the Zenithia trilogy, 4, 5, and even 6. I know a lot of people don't like 6, but I love all 3 of them. So that's probably my favorite set of games, probably in that order too, 4, 5, 6, after 11. And then in terms of spin-offs, I've got a soft spot for the Heroes games because the first Heroes game was the first Dragon Quest game I ever beat. Which would have been like 2016. Mostly because I was a doofus and I was like, I'm just going to wait till something comes out for the PS4 or whatever, instead of taking the time to get into the DS ones way back when. So it was totally my own fault. But because Heroes was kind of like the first one I beat and everything, it's got like a soft spot. I've got a soft spot for it. And I mean, I really like it. I think Heroes is a really good game. Heroes 2, I feel like, is the weaker one of the two, but I like both of them a whole lot. And, you know, Dragon Quest has some good spin-offs, but I think if I had to choose one spin-off series to be my favorite, I think Heroes is probably the one I would go with.
Nice. I spent a lot of time talking about that one on podcast this spring. And I've put 100 hours into both of those games.
Although wow.
Probably about 20 or 30 of those hours might have been the kids, but at least 80 of those hours are mine on each game.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
No, I get what you mean. The first one, I don't know if it was fatigue because the second one came out like a year and a half after, and it was like, oh my gosh, here we go again for another 80 hours. But I beat the game, but I just never got into that post game in the second. I didn't do as much other stuff in 2 as I did in 1. 1, I got everybody level 99. I never platinumed it. There was a couple fights I couldn't get, and buying every single item just felt like a chore.
Yeah, that was the same for me. I started it off, and I was like, I'm going to platinum this one too. And then it got to the part where like there were some items that are like rare drops from rare enemies, and I was just like, oh, I can't get all of these items. Like I just decided to do other things with my time.
Nope.
But yeah.
So any that you didn't really like, didn't gel with?
I mean, I liked them all. I had a tough time with 7 when I was playing it, and I've written some posts about it on my blog before. I think I've mentioned it on DQFM, and I know I talk about it in my book. But at the time, part of it was my own fault. I made the mistake of playing 7 after I finished up the Erdrick trilogy. So I jumped from 3 to 7. So, and it was the 3DS version of 7 that I started with. And I guess without seeing where the series, like the in-between steps of the series growing with 4, 5, and 6, like it kind of felt weird jumping into 7. 7 still has my favorite vocation system of any video game, probably. I mean, I love it. And I actually replayed 7 during quarantine because I was like, you know, the longer I was away from 7, I was like, the more I was like, you know what? I did actually enjoy this. Like, I didn't think I was enjoying it at the time because I was like, oh man, I have to talk to like everybody in this village to advance the story, or like, oh man, I have to backtrack so much. And it wasn't like, so in my head at least, I really hated it, or at least disliked those parts of it. But then when I replayed it again, it was the 3DS version during quarantine. I guess because I knew what to expect from it, and I knew where the parts were slow, and I knew I basically knew to let it breathe. Like when I was playing it originally, like I was just trying to like play through it, you know. And 7, I feel like it doesn't work like the other Dragon Quest games. It's one of those that you kind of have to play through like an episode or an island, and then it's like you can let it sit for like 2 days and then come back to it instead of trying to just like plow through. And so I liked 7 a whole lot more playing it through the second time. I still haven't beaten it. I am pretty close though. I think I am at the water spirit, I think is maybe the last thing I did before I set it down again. So I'm a good chunk of the way through the
if you're on the spirits, you're doing, yeah.
Yeah, so, but honestly, the only one that I feel like I don't like is Dragon Quest VIII. And I know, like, every time I say that, I can just hear people screaming, and I feel like someone listening right now is like, no! But I know it's a good game, and I understand why people love it, but personally, I can't get into it. I think I don't have the nostalgia of playing it and beating it when it was new on the PS2. A friend of mine, Wade, brought it over to my house, and I remember at least watching him play it, and maybe, we were kids or younger, like high school, I guess. So he handed me like the controller probably a time or two and let me play through some of it. But for the most part, I remember watching him play it, and I didn't watch him play all of it by any means. And so, but that's it in terms of like Dragon Quest VIII nostalgia when it was new. And so I don't have that nostalgia for it. And like, I just feel like having played like all the other games, there's definitely games in the series that I would put much higher up on my list than 8.
Is it the Final Fantasy VII effect?
I think it is. Yeah, I think
if
it is.
If you didn't play that back on PS1 in the 90s, and just go pick up the original game today, you'd be like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's something very similar to that probably. Yeah, and it's like, and yeah, it's not a bad game by any means. It's just, it feels kind of bland to me. That I don't really especially love just the skill system that it has, and I think the cast is fairly memorable. I mean, I like the cast that it has, and the story, definitely has its moments, but there's things about pretty much every other Dragon Quest game that I like a lot more, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, listen, I am one of those people that really not a big fan of Dragon Quest VI, but I played through it 3 different times, so.
Yeah.
The lowest Dragon Quest is still above quite a bit of other games for me.
Oh, yeah. And that's my thing, is like, I'd still rather play Dragon Quest VIII, even though I say I don't like it just in terms of Dragon Quest games. I'd still rather play Dragon Quest VIII than a whole lot of other JRPGs out there.
Definitely. So, are there any games in the franchise that you didn't get to yet that you are looking forward to?
I really want to play Tornico, The Last Hope, which I know from reading your stuff for the book. I know you had a really good time with that one.
I did.
Or at least played it a lot.
Quite a bit. It's one of the few games. I don't collect games. I don't collect much, but I've got my claymation covered front title of him, or maybe it was the opening sequence that looked like it was horrible claymation, kind of like the PS1 Dragon Quest VII FMVs that were. But no, Torneco, I've played that, and the Super Nintendo. There was a SNES one version too, and I know Liam. That's one of his. Hi, Liam, still listening? That's one of his favorites. He likes that one.
Yeah, so that one's on my list. I have it, and I played it for about 30 minutes. It's the claymation stuff that you're talking about. That I've watched that opening sequence, and the first, I mean, I guess it's technically a dungeon, even though it's outdoors, but the first kind of tutorial where you're having to walk from town to the castle and do all that stuff. So I did that for about 30 minutes. I'm kind of putting it off because I'm wanting to play it with BJ sometime when we're together, like we did Dragon Quest Swords, because I feel like The Last Hope is one of those games that could be doable. It's like a shorter kind of Dragon Quest game, and if we really like put our minds to it, I'm hoping that we could play it together or play through some of it. And also, I'm not a huge mystery dungeon or like roguelike fan of game. I don't tend to like those games a lot. So I think playing them with a friend would kind of push me to get through it and get to the end of it,
My wife was out at Walmart, and all of a sudden recently she's decided that with her brother, I found a Switch out in the wild a couple of weeks ago and messaged my brother and brother-in-law, and he got it, and seeing him and his fiance playing Animal Crossings, my wife's all like, we could get Animal Crossings. I'd show the kids how to play it and how to do it. And I'm like, hey, that's not my jam, but that's fine if you want to go ahead. I said, we'll pick it up sometime soon. Well, she was out at Walmart the other day, and she sends me a picture like, oh man, it's out of stock. And I'm like, I can just buy it online, this isn't a problem. But then she sent me a picture of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. And she's like, oh, with the kids like this, should we get this? I was like, oh god, no. I'm like, I've played them. I beat the original one, the Pokemon one. I've done these, but yeah, you got to really have a certain mindset, and you got to be in it for okay, I know I'm going to go, and I'm going to step, and I'm going to do this, and limited inventory and all that. And Yeah, you
Hmm.
got to go in knowing, and judging from let's see, the lovely two people that actually filled out the poll here on howlongtobeat.com, Torneko: The Last Hope looks like it'll take you a little over a dozen hours.
Hmm. Okay, so
So
yeah, that's not too bad. That's about.
no,
I think Dragon Quest Swords. I think we managed to get through it in 13 or 14, maybe. I
mhm.
feel like it was less than 15. Anyway, so yeah, so that's what I was hoping with The Last Hope. I was hoping it was somewhere around in there.
Yeah,
Um,
it's been so long I couldn't tell you, but that does sound familiar. I mean, I didn't. It sure. I got that and Dragon Quest 7 at the same time when I finally bought a PS1.
uh-huh.
Way late, and yeah, Dragon Quest 7's way longer.
Yeah, for sure. I'd also the other one kind of that I would like to play is the 30th anniversary, the Final Fantasy versus Dragon Quest, the Itadaki Street. If I ever figure out how, it's really expensive to import on the PS4, and I don't have a Vita. But actually, from within the time of you and I kind of sort of talking about this for the podcast, and being up in Tennessee earlier, I actually managed to snag a PS4 copy. It's a Korean copy, but the PS4 isn't supposed to be region locked for only $25, which is which is
Nice.
much cheaper. Yeah, so I'm hoping it's legit, and I'm hoping I get it. It's one of those. It's one of those where, like, it's not expected to arrive at my house until like the end of July.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But I'm hoping that I will get to play it very, very soon.
And what's funny is, yeah, when we started talking about this a while back, you mentioned that it was on Vita. I was like, holy cow. Well, I have a hacked Vita. Everybody who knew how to do that, and I was like, oh. So I, sure enough, looked it up, and I got it installed on the Vita side, installed it on the Vita, and played through the first board, kicked Maribel's butt, like, yeah. And, and it shows I unlocked couple things, and I was like, cool, because I'll go through the next board. Well, the next board, like 10 turns into the game, it was obvious I was going to lose. I mean, like, every player has bought already like 10 properties, and I bought like one. I'm like, okay, I see where this is going. So in the menu, I went to like quit this board. I'm like, I'm not going to sit here playing this for 30 more minutes, 40 more minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized I should have done is put on auto, because quitting the board, I lost my progress, and now it doesn't show that I beat the first board. So
Oh man.
I don't know if it's like an issue with the ROM that I got or whatever. I just think that was kind of the thing. Like, if you don't play through it, it erased your data, or quit my save data. But it's funny, 2 weeks ago too, we plopped it in. I had picked up a used Wii, and my son and I are enjoying playing through the Mario vs. Dragon Quest 1 for the Wii. So that's been funny. I
Yeah,
think we're playing it one night at the same time you and your wife are tweeting about playing it. I'm like, oh crap, I'm playing that right now too.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that became Fortune Street for Wii became like the unofficial quarantine video game for my wife and me. I mean, I was definitely playing MMOs the whole time, and my wife was playing Animal Crossing. But it was kind of like if we wanted to play something together, I'd drag the Wii out, and the Wii is one of those things. It's not an easy system to drag out because it has like 4 million parts that go with it. But
Yeah.
I dragged it out, and we started playing Fortune Street, and I actually brought it up to Tennessee because we were going to be staying with BJ and his wife part of the time when we were up there, and taught them how to play it. We played it with the easy play rules, but taught them how to play it there, and the four of us played it a whole bunch of nights while we were up there, and it's a lot of fun. But those boards are really, really long.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine losing progress on one. Like, that would be one of those things that would happen to me, and I think it would, like, I think I would get mad enough about it that I would have to put the game away for a while, like
I
a
have. That
solid
was a
week.
week ago. That was a good week. And now I'm like, okay, what movie are we going to put on tonight? Like, maybe I'll pick it up and do a board while we're watching a movie.
Yeah. So
Since it's on the Vita, this one, yeah.
yeah, and I'm kind of the thing with the reason I've got my eye on the 30th anniversary one is just because, I mean, I do like older Final Fantasy games a lot. I don't like a lot of the ones in the past like decade or so very much, but a lot of the older Final Fantasy games I do enjoy a lot. And so just seeing some of the Final Fantasy characters on the cover there with the Dragon Quest characters looks cool. And I don't have a PS2 that can play like the other Final Fantasy DQ one. So since I don't have the PS2, the PS4 one seems like a good way to go. Plus, it it has at least Sylvando from 11. I'm not sure which all characters it has, but Sylvando's on the cover, so I mean he's got to be on there.
Yeah, and I played 2 boards. I haven't really. I mean, I know there's a lot left to unlock. So.
Mm-hmm. Can you do the out to lunch feature or whatever, like you can on the Wii, where the computer like plays through the board for you?
Yes, you can, and yeah, that was something I realized later. Like, okay, so next time I'm like, I know I've lost, and yet there's still probably going to be a half an hour, 45 minutes left. I'm going to turn that on, set it off to the side, do something else, and just let my loss happen. But yes, it does have that feature.
Okay, cool. Because I think that's kind of where what I see myself doing with some of those characters that you have to unlock is just letting the computer play it out whenever I can't play it myself, and just hope that I can unlock some extra boards and characters and everything.
Yeah, I remember in the Wii game, I had pretty much unlocked everything, and then that Wii has long since gone away. So since all the progress was stored on Wii, not the game, so.
Yeah, I was determined. I was telling my wife when we were playing it during quarantine, I was like, I have to unlock Dragon Lord. I'm going to unlock Dragon Lord. We have all this time on our hands. I'm going to unlock Dragon Lord. And then I Googled it to see what all you have to do to unlock Dragon Lord. And it kind of not necessarily turned me off from doing it, but so much as just I saw it and I was like, oh yeah, I don't think there's any way I'm ever going to be able to do all that.
Well, now you say that, I'm like, ooh, maybe did I ever him on the?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it would take like probably hundreds of hours, honestly, as long as some of those boards can take. I mean, I couldn't imagine it being like a quick thing you could get through.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's too much reading to continue talking and try to read all that stuff at the same time.
Oh yeah, but I think it might be the last character you unlock. I think you have to unlock like all the boards and then beat the final board. Is what I think all I think you have to do for it.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, those games can go for it. It's like playing Monopoly. How long does a game of Monopoly play?
Oh yeah, for real. Like I remember playing Monopoly as a kid, and my brother and my dad and myself, we're just way too competitive to play board games together. And Monopoly is one of those games that just really promotes competitiveness. And so we had like a house rule where you could auction off your property instead of selling it back to the bank. You could try auctioning it off to other players. Mm-hmm. As like a way to just kind of buy up properties easier. And I remember some of those sessions would get really contentious when we were kids, because we would just be trying to drive like auction prices up on the other one or whatever, just out of spite. And I've noticed my wife and I do that to each other on Fortune Street as well. So I guess it's a problem with
the game, man.
Yeah, I guess it's a problem with me. I guess I'm like the constant in all of that.
You're the center of that Venn diagram.
Yeah, that's me.
All right, do you have any like favorite or least favorite characters or monsters throughout the whole series?
From 10, it's definitely the ham sandwich, the little like blue pig with the yellow hat. It's that one because I really like the color scheme of it, even more than I like the character model, and that's my daughter's favorite monster from any of the games. But I do really like the color scheme of that one in particular. But other than that, it's kind of just like the usual, like almost cliche ones, Slime Knights, Golems, Slimes, all of those are cool. My least favorite, though, by a long portion, is definitely a Hawkheart from the first Joker. the ugly chicken turkey thing that looks like it's missing lots of feathers.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm looking at it now. That does look like it's a plucked chicken and just pop that in the oven.
It's so ugly. And the thing about it, too, is that it's pretty early in that game. And it's after you get Wolfspade first, which, looks like it's a cool, like, little dog-wolf companion to have. And it looks really neat. And then it gets turned into this, like, ugly, featherless chicken monstrosity. And it's just like, man, I really want my doggy back.
Yeah, that is quite the visual jump between those two.
Yeah, it was a weird, decision, like design decision, I feel like, in that game, to go from like this cutesy, like little dog companion to just this Hawkheart ugly chicken thing. So
I know on Dragon Quest FM you have the fan the community spotlight every now and again. and I know you buy quite a lot of merchandise.
Mhm.
Uh, do you have any favorite official merchandise or official fan made stuff, or official fan made or fan made stuff that you enjoy?
Yeah, so I really like the figures. So I'm trying to slowly collect all the ones from Dragon Quest XI. It's just that those Bring Arts figures, like, you have to basically take out like a second mortgage on your house to buy them all.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have right now. I have the Luminary, Eric, and Jade are the only three I have, and they're great figures. I still don't necessarily think they're worth the money that you have to pay for them. So that's kind of like a slow progression, I guess, where I'm gonna eventually get all of those, I guess.
Mhm.
But I have some DQ10 ones now. I have the hero and the Galapagos, the giant turtle from 10. I have those figures, which look really cool. I mean, I bought it just for the Galapagos because I love that design for it. And then probably most recently, the official one that I got was Crows. Is how Google translates. It's what it tells me his name is, but I think people refer to him as maybe like Klaus or Klaus. He's the guy with the cowboy hat that's in 2.0 of Dragon Quest X.
Okay.
So he's a pretty cool character, and I found an American seller on eBay that was selling it for like $25, and I was like, wow, that's a great deal. Of course, I'm going to have to get that. And And I always take them out of the box and put them like on my bookshelf and stuff in my office. So it's like I don't necessarily care about them being in boxes because I know I'm going to always open the box and put them out anyway. So those are some of my favorites. I really like BJ and his wife got me a giant Christmas slime for Christmas this past year. It's probably the biggest official merch that I own. And I growing up, like I love Christmas. To this day, I still love Christmas. And so the Christmas slime was kind of one of those things that it was two of my favorite things, Christmas and Dragon Quest, kind of all came together. Then I wanted to get the Dragon Quest Christmas tree. Like they have an official little Christmas tree with slime ornaments. Have you seen that one?
I have not, no.
So they have it, and it's a little bit more than I would like to pay for it. So recently I bought a bunch of little slime like keychains from like the gachapon machines in Japan, and I bought a bunch of those for like very inexpensive, just like like $3 a piece. And so I'm gonna make
those too.
I'm gonna make my own Dragon Quest tree, I think, this year, and just use those keychains as ornaments instead of shelling out all the money for the like officially licensed Christmas slime tree that they have.
Well, I am looking now. I don't even know where I am. I'm on eBay Australia. I don't know how I got there.
It's a cool looking...
I don't even know what currency that's in. Oh no, that's Canadian.
Yeah, like it looks cool, but it's just like at the time I think it was like $70, which is a little bit more because the tree doesn't necessarily look like anything special. It's mostly the ornaments and things that I want.
Yeah.
And so I don't like the $70 or so that I found at the time for it was just more than I really wanted to pay. You know what? I was looking at postage. You're right. It is $72 Canadian for that. Oh, okay. Yeah. So that may even be the one.
Probably the same listing just sitting there.
Yeah, probably so. But the Christmas slime and that kind of stuff, I really love those. The liquid metal slime 2DS I got that came with the 3DS version of 11 is really great. It makes me sad now when I have to go back to my old American 2DS to play like American 3DS games, because I mean, I don't know, it's a pretty cool little. I got a good deal on it, and it's a pretty cool little system. And I also like it much better because it's the 2DS XL, which folds up. It's not the American 2DS I have is like the ugly one that's like just one and it doesn't fold, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's awkwardly shaped. And so, I mean, at the time, it got the job done. I was able to play American DS games on it, like the Dragon Quest DS games. So, I mean, it got the job done. I bought the 2DS just because it was, the cheaper option at the time. But the Liquid Metal Slime 2DS is probably one of my favorites. And then I mentioned on the podcast, like probably over a year ago now, the Malroth figure that I have. I actually bought it not long after beating Dragon Quest 2 because I had such a hard time beating Malroth in that game that when I finally beat him, I bought him. Now that I beat him, I was like, I'm gonna buy you and I'm gonna put you up on my on my bookcase, and so he just sits up there and kind of leers at me from time to time. But it's just kind of a nice reminder, because of any final boss of any video game ever, I think Malroth gave me more trouble than just about any of them. So he was always memorable to me just because of that.
Oh wow, nice.
Outside of official stuff, though, I do try to collect a lot of fan made stuff. When our podcast, like we have a Patreon page for DQFM, and so whenever that money doesn't go to like keeping costs up for the website, or like maybe we use some of that money to buy a DQ game so we can play it and then talk about it. With any of the extra money, I always try to put it back into like the community. So I always try to use like any extra Patreon money I get to like buy fan made like stickers or shirts or whatever else I can find. And I try most of the time to find artists that I know or I see on Twitter, just to kind of, I don't know, because I mean, I really like the Dragon Quest community. So I try to like, I don't know, pay it forward, I guess, for lack of a better term, you know? So I like the stuff that they do. I don't just, buy it for the sake of buying it. Like I find stuff that I like. But it just seemed, to me at least, it seemed like kind of just a cool thing to do, to kind of just put the money back out into the community every month if there's any extra stuff left over. So I have a pretty, I would say I have 30 or so fan made, just like stickers, posters, shirts, that kind of stuff now, somewhere around 30 different items. And then Alinzia, she co-hosts a podcast called the Nerdberg Review, and she actually sent me, I just got them last night, got back from Tennessee last night, and it was waiting for me. She made a blue slime, and then she actually surprised me by sending me a metal slime and like a car decal to put on my car of a blue slime to go on the back of my car. The two slimes, I think they're crocheted. I'm not crafty enough to know what it's called, but I think it's crocheting. It looks like it's crocheted and then it's stuffed. I don't know. I'm probably sounding like an idiot right now because I know nothing about crafting.
Oh no! See, my wife crochets all the time, and yeah, she's even crocheted Baby Yoda.
Oh, that's cool.
From The Mandalorian. She used to do a lot of hats, and I have a slime one that she made me, and people tease me all the time. It looks like a penis on my head when I wear it. So. Maybe I should just have her sew the bottom up and throw some stuffing in there and never wear that again. That might work out better.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
But very likely crocheted. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I think it is. And they're really nice. They're really high quality. She has an Etsy shop. She's the Crafting Rogue on Twitter. So quick shout out to her here. And she has her own Etsy shop. I don't know what the Etsy shop is called or anything like that, but I do know, I believe she started actually selling some of them, but they do look really cool. And the only thing I don't like about them is that my 4-year-old Naomi was in the room when she saw me opening them, and now she wants them all to herself. And I'm like, but can't I see it for just a minute? Like even last night I was trying to get a picture of them, to tell Alinzia thank you, and I couldn't. She wouldn't let them go. She was like, "Here, I'll hold them up for you," because I think she knew I was wanting to hold them. But anyway, assuming I can get my 4-year-old to share with me, they're really fantastic. So I really like those a lot.
That's great. The other day, my oldest son just kind of like blindly stumbled into our bedroom, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. We're like, you need something or whatever? And he just kind of looked up at the TV that we have in our bedroom, and I've got a stuffed slime up there. We call him Westy, after the one on Twitter. We'll take picture time and submit them to Westy, show Westy visiting places. And he just kind of looked up, and he's like, can I have Westy? And I picked him up, handed him to him, and he walked out. Like, I was like, that was completely like sleepwalking. Like, and he's 6 going on 7, and really, I mean, he's played with Westy once or twice, but that was just completely out of the blue. Like, just, I need Westy, and now he's like permanently in that bedroom for a while.
Yeah.
So.
And part of me is like, I feel like that's good. Like on one hand, like my daughter, she totally stole I have a Dragon Quest Rivals slime blanket that I bought. And it looks like the slime card from the Rivals game. And, she totally stole that. Like, she sleeps with that every night. And she's got those stuffed crocheted slimes in her room right now. So part of me is like, I'm really proud that she likes Dragon Quest so much. It's like a proud dad moment. But then on the other hand, I'm like, but I want that blanket.
Definitely. All right. So other than your co-host BJ,
Mhm.
obviously, you ever meet up with any other Dragon Quest fans or find people out in the wild somewhere?
Yeah, a few times. My friend Wade that I mentioned a little bit earlier,
Hmm.
he passed away in 2013, but he was my next door neighbor, and he's the guy that got me into RPGs like when we were really young, like I was probably 8. So he's the guy that got me into RPGs, and then he's the one that kind of introduced me to Dragon Quest way back in the day with Dragon Quest 8. I can't remember if he had 7 or not. If he did, he never showed it to me. But Dragon Quest 8, and then my brother-in-law Daniel. He's my wife's youngest brother. He is really into DQ. When we were up there this past week, and then anytime we go there for Christmas, he and I always just kind of sit back and nerd out over Dragon Quest and video games for really long stretches of time. So just personally, no, that's really it. But I have had a few people from time to time. I have the lanyard, that came with like the Dragon Quest 11 collector's edition. I think it was like a
Hmm.
pre-order bonus. I have that, and I have my ID to get into Palm Beach County schools, because
Hmm.
you have to have like an ID, to get into the schools because of
Oh
the
yeah.
background check and all that. And so I have to wear that around my neck. And so from time to time, I get people who kind of sort of recognize it. Like it's not always necessarily that they recognize it as Dragon Quest. And I've had quite a few people think it's Dragon Ball. But people do kind of recognize it from time to time. And I keep it hanging up from my rearview mirror in my car. And my wife kind of recently was actually, she'd gone through the drive-through. I think it was KFC. I could be wrong about that now. It's been a while, but she went through the drive-through there, and the guy that was bringing her the food out saw it and was like, "Oh, those are the heroes from Dragon Quest 11," and was a fan of Dragon Quest. So
Oh,
she,
nice.
yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. So from time to time, it is, but I've been to one like that was called the Geek Gathering. That was like a convention. That's like the only convention I've ever been to, and it was like North Alabama. This when we still lived in Tennessee. It was in North Alabama, and it was at like the peak of The Walking Dead popularity and Game of
Hmm.
Thrones. So that's pretty much all that was there at the time, was like Walking Dead stuff and Game of Thrones stuff. So because I haven't been to like a lot of cons or anything, that's generally it. Just from talking to coworkers of mine, I have found out since then, like they've at least played Dragon Quest and liked it. The artist who did a cover for one of my other books actually was talking to her kind of recently, and I was telling her that I was working on a Dragon Quest book, and she was like, "Oh, Dragon Warrior was like one of the first video games I ever played as a kid, and that's what got me into RPGs." And I was like,
Nice.
how have we never talked about this?" So yeah, so it's been cool, just kind of randomly meeting people or talking about it and finding out that people have played a game or two before.
Yeah, I was surprised. My wife's best friend, her husband's the one who hacked my Vita for me. But one of the first times we met, he noticed the screen lock on my phone was a Dragon Quest slime. And he's like, "Hey, I remember playing a game way back in the 80s that had that thing on it. What was that called or something?"
Uh-huh.
He hadn't played anything since the original Dragon Warrior 1. But here it is 35 years later, he still recognized it just from an image on my phone. He's like, "You like that game?"
Yeah,
I was like,
that's awesome.
"Yeah." I said, "JRPGs are pretty much all I play," and he's all into shooters and everything. So
Uh-huh.
it's funny when we get together and he's chatting with me, or when he was getting my Vita set up and the games I was excited to play, he's like trying to talk me in all these other. I'm like, "Nope, just hack my Vita and shut up." We have two completely different gaming things going on here.
Yep.
Like, yeah, he had no clue. He's like, "Is it like Final Fantasy stuff?" I was like, "Yes, like Final Fantasy stuff." We'll just leave it at that.
That's
Might
how
be.
that's how my brother Micah and some of my cousins are. They mostly play shooters, but every once in a while there'll be an RPG that they play. And my brother, growing up, like he played way more RPGs back then than he does now. But at Christmas 2018, I guess it was, whenever we were up there visiting family, we got talking about video games, and I was talking about Dragon Quest 11. And
Mhm.
I think one of them had heard of it, the rest of them hadn't, and I was telling them all about it. And I was like, "Oh, you guys got to get it." And since then, I've given it as presents to almost all of them, because I'm just like, if I give it as a gift, they'll definitely play it. If I'm just like, "Hey, spend $60 on this," they may or may not actually do it. I gifted a copy to my brother a while back, but I know I convinced him to play it whenever the demo for the Switch came out because it was a free demo, and he was playing it and he was like, "Man, I really like this a lot. It reminds me of the games we played growing up." And I was like, "Yeah, doesn't it? Isn't it great?" And so I think I don't know if he's beaten it. I actually should follow up with him on that. But I know at the time he was really liking it because it reminded him of those classic JRPGs that we played so much as kids.
That reminds me, I just went on Amazon. I need to really get on getting Dragon Quest Builders 2 for my nephew. I don't know if he'll ever get around to playing it when he can put Minecraft aside, but...
Oh yeah, I did that with my cousin. He's into Minecraft, and I was like, "Hey man, if you want to play Minecraft, I've got the game for you." I was like, "Dragon Quest Builders 2, right here. Play it. Thank me later."
He used to, I think is he 8 now, 8 or 9? I can't remember. We're going to see him in a couple weeks, but yeah, back when he was like 5 and 6, when we'd hang out over the summer together, he'd like to play with my DS and just kind of walk around and do battles in like Dragon Quest 4, 5, or 6. So maybe it'll spark a memory with him. Like, wait a minute, this is the first time I've seen this. And it's kind of like Minecraft. Yes, let's go. All right, well, if we're talking about Minecraft, it's time to cut that crap and talk about Dragon Quest X. And to kick us off, we're going to play our game Marry Thwack Puff Puff, which we usually remember to play on Slime Time. But we're going to play. Let's play with 3 different races here. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to give you ogres, weddies, and elves. Ogres, weddies, and elves. Who are you going to marry, who are you going to thwack, and who are you going to puff puff?
All right, so I've given some thought to this. Maybe too much thought.
Don't overthink it.
I think I would have to marry one of the elves, because the elf kingdom, like the main elf kingdom, I can never remember the name of it. It's like super long. It's like Kamihara Mui or something like that. I'm butchering the name. But it's where the cherry trees are always in bloom, and it has like a cool like Eastern architecture design. And the music, it's my favorite music in 10. So I think I would marry an elf just so I could live there. Like, not because I love the elves or anything necessarily, but just to like
live. Be a nationalized citizen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think I would go with elf on that one. Thwack, I gotta go with ogre on this one, because the ogre seems to be the most popular race, especially for Westerners I know who play. Like, you're an ogre, right?
Yep, I'm an ogre.
Yeah, and BJ chose an ogre when he played. I know Ryan Molina plays an ogre. So a lot of the Western fans I talked to who play 10 chose ogres, but there's something about the design I just don't like. And I don't know if it's because they're red, and red is probably like one of my least favorite colors, if that's why, or whatever. But I think I would have to go I'd thwack the ogres, just because personally they're my least favorite race, even though I know they're really popular with like pretty much everyone else. And Puff Puff, definitely weddy, just because they're weddies. Like, I love ocean stuff. I love the weddies from the moment I saw a weddy. But I don't like the towns very much. Like, I wouldn't want to marry one and live there.
So the weddies can be the side piece.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't remember what I said. I recorded another one of these with Austin Nerevar a couple weeks ago, and I know I said the weddies were my thwack. I think I completely reversed the weddies and the ogres with you. I do like the ogres. I don't know what it is about them, minus the big pointy shoulder things. That I mean, I guess you gotta have something. The weddies got their ears and their fin and whatever. Yeah. But I'll marry an ogre, or puff puff an ogre, marry the elf, and thwack the weddies. I think it's the color thing in reverse with me. Love red, love purple.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
What's funny is just last night I was doing. I make perler bead things like crazy. My kids love me making Dragon Quest and Pokemon perler bead creations. And that was one of the things we first did when the quarantine went down. I stopped and picked up a bunch of different perler bead colors on the way home from Joanne the last day I was at work, and then I got an email from perlerbead.com that they were going to have like 50% off if you ordered $100 or more. And we were like, oh yeah, we're going to order $100 or more easily.
Yeah.
So we got back from spring break to a box with like $60, really like $120 with all these perler beads of different colors and everything. And we've made a bunch of different ones in the meantime. But yesterday, Ost was showing on the Dragon's Den Discord a Dragon Quest X art book that he got. And he was flipping through, and he just put a couple pages on there, and one of them were of sprites. And I was like, oh my god, those are 2D sprites from Dragon Quest X? That's awesome. Like, can you scan that in and get that to me? So between that, and then he's like, oh, you know, they have this background from back when they released like version 4, and he sent me that too. And so last night I ended up making 4 different ones. I made a Weddy. I made an ogre. Was it is it Poplio, the green ones? Pop something?
Oh, the like Pukalipos?
Oh, no, yeah.
They call them, Westerners call them poppets, and I don't know where that came from. I don't know if that's like a translation or whatever, but Pukalipos is what they're called, at least. Like
yeah.
Yeah, so
I made one of him, and then and man, I never tried even speaking the translated terms. But the guy on the train that becomes very important in Dragon Quest in the version 1, he's always eating on the train.
Yes, the sage. Yeah.
Sage. I made him too. So I stayed up quite late last night making 4 different perler beads of Dragon Quest X people.
Yeah, and let me just say I am super jealous of your talent with those perler beads, because I see you post them online from time to time, and like they look really great. And I'm like, I do not possess enough artistic ability to experiment a lot with that kind of thing, but you do a fantastic job, and I'm super jealous.
You know, I can't draw, I can't sing, but man, I can take some colored beads and really just lay them down. It's funny because some people I mean, not that it takes much to do it, but people are like, oh, it takes a lot of talent. I'm like, no, you just got to really decide on the colors. Because, I mean, I've got 70 colors, and I did a lot of these back when I had like 20 or 30 colors. And it's just, you know, what can you do to make this look right? That
yeah,
it's not going to be a perfect one-to-one copy of the game, you know? They're working with millions of shades. I'm working with like 40.
Right, yeah.
I've got 3 shades of blue. What can I do? That's it. All right, well, let's talk about dive into Dragon Quest X now. You're ready, so you'll be able to dive maybe a little bit easier than me. This is a game that I intermittently wanted to play for the past 8 years. I know I've talked down about it a bunch. I'm not a huge MMO person. I don't play MMOs. Never got into World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 11, 14. None of that interested me. But because it's Dragon Quest, it's always been like, Dragon Quest, but MMO, back and forth. The language barrier was an easy one for me to obviously say, well, can't play it, it's in Japanese.
Yeah.
But as the world gets more convenient and Google has instant translating ability, and we have Nawaria on telling us all these people that are playing it, and I read the den, and then you go and put up your posts about the easy ways to do it, I'm like, okay, maybe I should do this. So what got you into wanting to do it?
And I'm not a big MMO guy either. Like, I could never get into. I don't think I've ever played like WoW or Guild Wars. Tried playing like Elder Scrolls Online and Neverwinter, and couldn't really get into those either. But I got into Final Fantasy 14 when it was new, when it was a Realm Reborn, because like the initial Final Fantasy 14 like flopped. Like it was awful and nobody played it. So they rebranded it and brought it back as a Realm Reborn a few years later, and that's the one that I actually started with. And there was an event in Final Fantasy XIV that went hand in hand with a Dragon Quest X event. So if you played Final Fantasy XIV, you got Dragon Quest X stuff. If you played Dragon Quest X, you could get some Final Fantasy XIV stuff. And it was a really cool event, and I was like, I liked Final Fantasy XIV enough at the time, like I just started playing it, but I liked it enough at the time that I was like, okay, maybe I could get into an MMO. So I looked it up back then. This was probably like 2013, 2014. And I saw that Dragon Quest X, wasn't in English. there was no good way to play Dragon Quest X, no easy way to play Dragon Quest X. And I was like, okay, well, there goes my dreams of playing this. But I still really liked the items that I collected in Final Fantasy 14. And so then was it last year when the IP ban was lifted? I believe it was like
Correct.
summer
I want to
2019.
say it was like last summer. Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever that happened, I remember I got online and I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to do this. And it was a little confusing because I was like, do I have to create a Japanese Square Enix account to just play the like demo of this, the trial version? Do I have to, do this or that? And it was honestly just kind of overwhelming. And then I believe it was earlier this year when Nawaria was on Slime Time, right? Earlier this year. She was, so I listened to that, and then I had seen some of Nawaria's videos before when I was like initially interested in 10. And then I heard her on the podcast, and then Ryan Molina was starting to play it and posting some screenshots. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give this a try, figure it out. I play mostly on Switch. So I was like, it seems like it could be kind of easy to play this on Switch. And around the same time, I'd started reviewing video games for Nintendad, which is a UK website. And I had to create a UK Switch account. And so because of to redeem the download codes they sent me.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, I did it for the UK. I could easily do this for Japanese. And I did it, and it was painless. And I, figured out a way to get 10 to show up when I was searching for it on the store, and downloaded it, and the rest just kind of history. I mean, when I did it, I went ahead and I was like, you know what? That's when I wrote the first post with that, because I was like, you know what? This is really not that hard. Somebody just needs to like put it on the internet.
Yes, thank you. You're right. It was quite simple and like, oh, well, that's all it is. But for someone who didn't have that in front of them, that's 2 hours of fumbling around maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that's what started kind of me writing some of these posts, and since then, that's where it's come from. It's just me playing through stuff, and I'm like, well, it's not really that hard. It's just like somebody needs to put it on the internet in like the simplest terms in English, so that it's easy. So that it's easy to Google it, and that's been my main thing, is because maybe it's just I Google the wrong things, or if you Google something, like so many of the Dragon Quest X players I know, they use the guides, the like official online guides for 10, mm-hmm. but you have to translate them, and so once you have those guides, it's pretty easy to know where to go and what to do. But if you're just starting off new and relying on Google, like it doesn't show that stuff up, so you just kind of have to tough it out and find it for yourself. And so, but I've had a good time with 10, and I think playing it on Switch is definitely my preferred way of playing it. I haven't played it in any other format. It's just the fact that I can play it handheld when my kids are watching cartoons, or my wife is wanting to watch something on Netflix that I'm not interested in. It's like I can just sit there and play handheld, and it's very convenient.
Oh, very much so. And I know one of the things I had a problem with, I was, I think 2 or 3 emblems into it, and I ended up finding a brand new Switch. Mm-hmm. And Dragon Quest X doesn't burn through the battery quite as badly as Dragon Quest Builders 2 did. Uh-huh. Man, that thing was killing my Switch last summer. But I always wanted the newer one. My Switch was like the base model from when it first came out 3 years ago. Uh-huh. And I was like, I really want that new battery life one. So I did pick one up, happened to run across it 7:30 a.m. one Walmart morning, and first one they'd had in months. And I get it home, and I bring it home, and I'm trying to get on there. And this is when I was messaging you quite a bit, like, I can't get my account to transfer over. I can move my Japanese account to my new Switch, but it won't work. And you were like, oh yeah. And like I messaged a couple people on the board, like, oh, that doesn't carry over. I don't know about that, because as I said, a lot of these people have played for years, and they all do it they've done it back from VPN days on their computer. So they've got all that knowledge, but not, hey, how can you continue playing a free version right now? So you had mentioned just make the Japanese Square Enix account. And I was like so nervous about that, because everything I've read about making the Square Enix account is you better write down the name of a hotel or somewhere of real mm-hmm. physical address in Japan, and they need to verify that. You need to enter your name completely in Japanese characters. And and everything, and I'm like, what the heck? And yeah, just following when you put that up later, that was a godsend because yeah, it was easy. I mean, I just used my regular email. It didn't
Yeah.
ask for an address or anything. I mean, hey, it's like any quick old thing on the internet. Pick a username, pick a password, and you're good.
Hmm.
And it transferred very easily to my new Switch, so now I can play a little bit longer
Yeah.
than the my old battery allowed me. So thank you for putting it online. Thank you for putting it online in ways that people can easily Google, because I know I've talked it up on one of the RP Gamer not websites, but on one of the RP Gamer podcasts.
Oh, cool.
One of the guys was really interested, and I was like, it was really easy. I said, just search up Dragon Quest Austin, Dragon Quest X. I said he's got it right there, and it was foolproof. I mean, you can't make it any plainer than that.
Yeah, and I think, and that's one of the reasons why I try to do it, is because I'm really not tech savvy. Like people who know me personally and know me really well, I mean, I'm definitely more tech savvy, have become more tech savvy these last few years from working from home more and stuff. But, I'm really not that tech savvy. And so I feel like that's kind of like the very first post I ever did for Dragon Quest X. I'm like, look, I really am not tech savvy, and I'm not this like computer genius, or anything like that. And if I can figure it out, you can too. Like let's do this thing. I feel like the Dragon Quest community is so good about helping each other out when there's a problem, like figuring stuff out like this. And so I just kind of wanted to do my part to help other people with that.
Yeah, I remember, 10, 15 years ago, like Caravan Hearts, the forgotten, people don't like it, Dragon Quest Monsters game for Game Boy Advance, when that fan translation finally came out. I remember that day easily going in there and applying the patch and putting it on my ROM and dumping it into my flash cart and all that. And nowadays that would be like, man, I don't know if I can go through all that trouble.
Yeah.
But and even that system of breeding everything, I wrote an FAQ for Games FAQ on like the breeding and how those work, and I'm like, man, 15 years ago my brain could handle that, and I would sit down and plunge through that. But I don't know, too many responsibilities these days. So having that very easily in very simple English with the screenshots right there, hey, click this, that worked out really well. So again, thanks.
Yeah, of course.
So when you started, we already mentioned I went with Ogre. What race have you been playing as?
Yeah, so I definitely went with Weddy. Like I can't remember if I actually said it yet or not, but I wanted to play as a Weddy since I saw one for the first time back in like 2013, 2014, because I'm so into ocean stuff. I'm so into like aquatic stuff that the Weddy just looked like a really cool race. And honestly, that's the thing about Dragon Quest X, is it really makes me wish that there were more playable races in other mainline Dragon Quest games.
Oh, definitely. It adds a lot of variety.
And
yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a lot of art assets, but gosh, there's so many. It's near infinite, all the stuff that you can see in that game.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So with your Weddy, what jobs have you done?
I mostly did Warrior. I am at level 60 right now. I have to go to do after 50, you have to do you have to unlock level caps to unlock up to 55 and then up to 60. And then now I need to get it up to 65. And I haven't done that yet. So I'm just sitting at 60 right now. I tried the Thief for just a little while because I wanted to unlock some of the other jobs that you can unlock later in the game. And one of them, I believe it's the Ranger. You need to steal something from one of the monsters. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get my Thief up. And then I went to go unlock the quest, and I couldn't yet because I hadn't purchased the real version of the game, and those jobs come with 3.0, so it won't even let you do the quests or anything yet. So I played a Thief for like 5 seconds, but mostly Warrior.
Yeah, I've done. I think I got my fighter up. I did Warrior, and I'm sitting at 50. I beat version 1 at 50. I got him up to like fighter level 25. I did the basically the healer class, the priest class, as I think I got that up to 20, 30. And those have really come about in little half-hour spurts. Like, if I can catch medal time at the beginning or know that it's about to happen, like, oh, cool, let me quickly change over to that class and then just
Mhm.
run outside. And with my Bard party members, they're kicking butt, and I'm level 25 or higher easily within that half hour of just farming metal slimes and the liquid metal slimes. I guess it turns out I didn't really need to do that as much. I was doing it. I'm thinking of like Dragon Quest IX, because a lot of these systems are the same as the job systems in Dragon Quest IX,
Uh-huh.
and I was doing it to get more. Was it the skill points to
Skill
pump into my
points.
weapons? Yep.
Uh-huh.
And then when I started doing the actual warrior specific job or the quest line, every time you finish one of those, I was getting 20 skill points in everything for
Uh-huh.
that.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, geez, why was I switching jobs to earn extra skill points? In a half an hour, I could have probably knocked out 2 of the warrior quests. They were not very hard.
Yeah, and that's what got me levels so much, because it raises it, like you said, by 20 for like everything on your warrior right there. And even now, mine are all maxed out at 100, and I need to go do the quest to like raise that so that they're not all locked at 100, because I have something like 200 points right now that I can't use, that are just on my character, but I can't use because I've maxed them out at 100. And then from those warrior quests, you also get those tickets that give you like 25,000 experience if you use the item.
I didn't really realize that's what it was. I went and used one time, and I went from like 43 to 47, like boom, and I'm like, whoa!
Yep.
So I hit my 50 level cap well before I was done with version 1.
Yeah, so I do have a question while we're talking about the warrior quest line there. I actually have a question for you about that. So you get warrior equipment from doing some of these quests, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you get the warrior chess piece from doing those quests?
I believe so. I want to say, like, I don't think the 4th quest came with any items, but I want to say by the time I did the first 3, I had the entire outfit. I had the armor, the legs, and the helmet.
Yeah, because I'm missing that. That's the one piece I'm missing, is the chess piece. And
I definitely got it from that, because I know I upgraded at that same time.
I checked the like official Japanese Dragon Quest guide online after the fact, because I was like, how do I get the chess piece for this? And it told me that it dropped from one of those quests. I can't remember which one it was, but it told me that you get the like armor for it. And it's nowhere in my inventory, and I'm not sure. I don't understand where that piece went, but I don't have it, and it's really weird.
Yeah, that I know I got it through those quests, because I think I whipped through the first 3 of those quests in under an hour one day. They were all just fetch quests, go here, and there was a little boss there, or whatever. But by then I'd figured out how to get really strong helpers, so it was pretty easy to plow through. And I think I went and found those warrior specific quests when I was level 40. I'm level 40 with like armor meant for someone level 22, and I was like, okay, this is I need to upgrade. How do I do it? Oh, do these quests.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I have no clue. So maybe somebody listening can help me out, because my that chess piece is just gone, and I know I didn't sell it because I'm always very careful about selling different armor pieces. So I'm not sure what happened to it, but I completely finished that, like, I think it's 5 quests, that whole quest chain.
Yeah, there's 5. I haven't done the 5th one, but I think I got all that armor by the end of the 3rd.
Yeah, and I have completing the 5th one. You get like the badge, the warrior badge or whatever, that you can equip on your character. And I have that, and I have like the gloves and the hat and everything. It's the chess piece is the only one that's just not there.
That's really bizarre.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, taking a step back a little bit, what did you think of the prologue when you first played, back when you were a human, a wee little human?
I like the prologue fine. It's probably my least favorite part of the 1.0 story, just because everything gets so much cooler once you can like choose your own race and everything. In terms of Dragon Quest prologues, I mean, it's definitely a Dragon Quest prologue, and it has kind of a twist there and everything. But the humans are kind of bland. The other races. I mean, even the ogres. I know I said I didn't like the design too much, but the other race still. Even the ogres look cool. For the most part, I'm not a fan of the shoulder spikes either, by the way. But but yeah, they look cool, and the humans are just kind of bland. I feel like by comparison, the Galapagos pretty cool. The Sing, or however you pronounce it, the little guy that looks like Hermes from the Disney Hercules movie.
Yes.
All that stuff is cool, but I definitely like all of the rest of the game better.
Mm-hmm. I kept thinking that because at the end of the prologue, your sister gets saved like you before the whole bad things go on. And I kept expecting, I'm like, at Dragon Quest, I'm going to fight her as a final boss at some point, but haven't seen any more of her. But what I have heard is there used to be, for the original Wii version, there was a whole offline campaign that starred her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was like a 20 to 25 hour, apparently completely offline quest that she was the star of, that you could play through with the original Wii version.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And
I knew there was an offline version that I guess doesn't exist anymore, but I had no clue that that's what it was. That's really cool.
Oh, and I can't remember. Someone recently just told me like why that doesn't exist anymore, because maybe like the events would be wiped out by one of the other versions or something later on, that they were just like, we don't need this anymore. Or they didn't bother porting that because it was only on the Switch. I wish I remember. Somebody had, in discussing this, someone had given a reason, and I was like, okay, that's actually a valid reason for not having that as part of the thing anymore.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Despite the fact I want it, but...
Yeah, I always just kind of assumed she went wherever my chess piece went.
She is somewhere wearing that warrior garb and doing just fine.
Yep. Exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
That's great. So when you play, do you try to translate every line as you go, or are you just trying to get a general idea, or how do you play through Dragon Quest X not knowing Japanese?
Early on, I was like, I'm going to translate everything. And so I took the better chunk of an afternoon translating all the menus and submenus, because I was like, if I can figure this out, that seems to be the key to making this game play easier, is just knowing how the menu works. And so I spent a lot of time translating the menu, and some of the translations, the way Google translates it, it's just like, I still don't know what it does. So I actually asked Ryan and Allie on Twitter. They both played Dragon Quest X. I asked them, I was like, hey, do either one of you guys know what these do? Because I can't figure it out. It tells me I can't use it right now with the free trial version, and it's not translating, so I don't know what it does. So they kind of helped me with some of that stuff. And then, I translated like the dialogue and stuff in the beginning, and then just I quit doing it. I felt like the expressions that the characters use, and just the actions and stuff that go on in cutscenes, it's easy enough to get the gist of it, even if I don't get the specifics. And so, I thought I didn't really need it anymore. And I honestly, the last half of 1.0 and pretty much all of 2.0, I haven't translated the first thing. I just get the gist, and I guess the rest of it is kind of just headcanon.
Yeah, I was doing like line by line every single thing, I think through my first two emblems. And then there was, is it on the Weddy Island where you have the girl that finds that cat, and the villagers are all like, no, that cat can't be here, or whatever, and that leads you to try to return the cat or go somewhere, and turns out the cat's like the baby of this big monster that's been bugging the village, and by it going home, everybody's happy. I don't know much, because that's where I stopped the translation. I was like, I get what's going on here. This kid's got a monster. Loving the monster. Probably shouldn't love the monster. It's causing problems. And it was at that point that I'm like, I can get by on what, I know enough Dragon Quest tropes. I've saved enough towns.
Yeah, that was kind of my thing too. And I'm not super into translation stuff. Like I know some fans who, they're all about like what the direct translations of these are and that kind of stuff. And to me, just personally, like, I think it's cool, and I really appreciate the effort that fans put into translating some of this stuff that we don't have, like, I guess, canon translations for. But to me, it's like, when I'm playing through, it's like, I don't have to know the name of like all of these NPCs, and I don't have to know the name of every boss even. When I was playing through 1.0, I took screenshots of all the boss screens because I thought they looked cool. And then after the fact, I put them up on my blog, and after the fact, I tried to translate them, because some of them, just using Google Translate, some of them are really are pretty funny. Some of them make no sense. I think my favorite is probably the crab. You know the crab? Did you do the second Weddy story? Yeah.
No.
Okay.
That's when I go back around and do all those next.
Yeah. So there's a crab, and it translates into Poetry Guardian, and I was like, Poetry Guardian sounds like a band I would have listened to in like 2002. Like, Poetry Guardian just doesn't necessarily roll off the tongue. But then apparently Poetry Ruins is what the location is called. But I didn't translate the ruins at the time. So it kind of makes sense that it's Poetry Ruins, because, you know, the Weddies are all about like poetry and singing and stuff. That's kind of like their cultural thing in 10. So I guess that's why it's called Poetry Ruins, and Poetry Guardian makes more sense now that I know that place is called the Poetry Ruins. At the time, it just, it sounded like an early aughts emo band.
What's your character name in the game? Did you just pick random symbols, or did you make a name?
Okay, it translates. Sometimes when I translate it, Google Translate shows it up as like Gabrielato or something like that. But what I did is I chose characters that look like the American alphabet. So if you look at my character name, yeah, it looks like Austin, but I have no clue how you really say it, how it would really be pronounced, or what it really translates into. I mean, I hope it's nothing like, offensive or bad, but I made it look like Austin.
So I went on, I think, Dragon Quest Wiki, and I looked up the Platinum King slime. Figured I'd keep with the spirit of my avatar everywhere. And I looked at the Platinum King slime, and I got those symbols, and I exhaustively went through the keyboard for like 10 minutes trying to match them all, and it ended up being one character short of what I needed it to be. So what Google calls my name, I usually get either Platinum XO, which then goes very well with the next one. Sometimes it'll just say Platinum Kiss. They'll address me as Platinum Kiss. But what's great is, because of the way, you move your phone or whatever you're translating with just a hair, and it comes up with all these different translations, I get Platinum Crap and Platinum Shit a couple times.
Man, yeah, yeah,
it's got that S sound, I guess, in there, and it's either a kiss or shit or.
Yeah. BJ did the same thing with his Dragon Quest X character. Like, he went and like spent a lot of time on it, like a lot of time trying to make it say Beej, and which is kind of like what he goes by mostly online, because BJ online is just doomed to like show up to some terrible things.
Yeah, you may not want to Google him too much.
Yeah, and so I found that out the hard way, because one of our Dragon Quest FM episodes, the first one he was gone with, I called it Dragon Quest Austin Echoes of an Elusive BJ, because BJ wasn't there. And then I was like, nope, Elusive BJ sounds awful. So I changed it to Beej, and I was talking to him about it, and he was like, yeah, that's why I get people to call me Beej online, because you can get into a lot of trouble just going by BJ on the internet.
Oh, that's great. So yeah, I laugh at my name every now and then. Just seeing that, and it like the 2 or 3 times it said Platinum Shit, I was so mad that I couldn't hit the screenshot fast enough. I got a couple shots where they're calling me Platinum Crap, but
that's awesome.
So main quest wise, I know I did version 1. I got 6 emblems. My next job, I need to go around and get 7, 8, 9, 10, all the second emblems from the different places. You've done all that, and you're into version 2 stuff?
Yes, I did all the minor emblems and major key emblems. Beat 1.0, 2.0. I was really chugging along there for a while, and then being gone the last like almost 2 weeks, I didn't get a chance to play Dragon Quest X again, really. So I'm actually on. It's set up in a very similar way, like like a lot of Dragon Quest games, where you go to like a town, there's a problem you solve, and then you kind of go on to the next town. And depending on how you look at it with the plot in 2.0, I'm on the what you might consider the second or third town, depending on like how technical you want to be with it. So not too terribly far, but
okay. I know. Yeah, I'm ready to go away for 3 weeks. At the end of this week. It'll probably be in the middle of this when this episode drops. But yeah, I'll be gone for 3 weeks with no Wi-Fi on vacation. So I'm just trying to do like side quests right now to I don't want to start anything that 3 weeks from now I'll be like, what the heck was I doing?
Yep.
No clue what was going on. But speaking of side quests, I do need to finish that Fifth Warrior one tonight. Internet issues wiped that away last night. But what are some of the side quests you've done? What have been helpful ones that you've done?
Other than I've done the 5 warrior ones, and the one that unlocks your ability to switch jobs, the one to unlock the party members that you can hire, the kind of necessary stuff like that, the dollar board, those quests,
definitely.
And then the ones to raise level cap. I still need to do the skill point ones and the next level cap one. The rest were all minor for the most part, and some of them were by accident. Like I would talk to an NPC and they're just talking along, and I'm like not using translate to figure out what the quest is till after they're finished, and I always waited to translate generally until the quest screen pops up and it tells you. I would always wait for that, so I just kind of press the button to advance dialogue. But every once in a while there'd be one where I would get to that, and then it would stamp clear over the quest, and I'd just be like, cool, I did this one. That's actually how I unlocked the sewing or weaving. I'm not sure what it's really called in Dragon Quest X, but whatever that uses the needle. I unlocked that one by accident because it was still early on in the game, and I was just kind of buying up items, and I'd found some books, and they looked like recipe books, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll buy some of these. And apparently I'd bought the right one that I needed for that quest, and I just talked to the NPC and magically unlocked that crafting system. And then
did you play around with it at all?
No, not that one. I did the forging one a little bit because of being a warrior, trying to get better swords and stuff. But I haven't read enough guides and stuff yet to know really how to. I mean, because the forging system is basically the same as Dragon Quest XI. 11's is just more refined, so it's not hard to figure that part out. But just kind of knowing like what books I need to spend my money on and that kind of stuff, and like where to find crystals and things that I need. Like that's the part that I need to just read up a lot more on so that I can start making some really good swords.
Yeah, I went with axes and trying to get through that. One day I think I got my skill level up. When I first started, I got my skill level up to like 6 or 7 or something like that. But then going over and seeing like what skill level I would need to make the first axe that would be better than what I have, I was like, oh god, screw it.
Yeah.
It's going to take way too much time, and I'm sure these are not all materials that I could just walk over to the other guy and buy, because they do have a lot of materials for sale right there where the forge is. But yeah, I don't think I'd be topping out. I would have topped out easily.
Yeah, and I'm kind of putting it off right now because I plan on buying just better stuff from the market board, but you can't do that in the trial version.
Correct.
And I'm waiting because I want the box and everything for it, even though it's just a code. I still want the box, so I ordered the physical version with the code that comes for the Switch. And because of all the coronavirus stuff, like all the shipping from Asia is like crazy delayed right now. And I still haven't gotten it. It was supposed to be here on June 2nd, and I still haven't gotten it. So as soon as I get to unlock the rest of the game and put that code in, I'm going to probably spend a lot of my gold trying to get better weapons and gear off of the market board in the game.
You won't even miss your missing warrior chest plate soon.
Oh, yeah. Definitely not.
What was I thinking? Oh, you're buying the game, getting it imported. That's something else that has come about from you posting, and recently people have been posting. Someone on the Den came on a couple weeks ago and said, they bought the game through the eShop, through the Japanese eShop. They were able to. People were telling them, "Oh, you can't do that. You got to buy the web money. You got to use the Crystal. You got to do this. You got to do that." And he's like, "Really?" Because I just set up my PayPal account, my U.S. PayPal account, to my Japanese eShop, and it just did it. He bought the game, downloaded it, and it's taking his monthly fee out of that too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that, I mean, talk about becoming more convenient.
Yeah, I will probably have to go that route. Like Ryan had sent me the web money site that he used, and I'd messed around with it some and knew that it worked. And that's the one he's been using for months. And you mentioned the PayPal thing to me a while back, and so whenever it's done, that's what I'm going to try to do is get my PayPal to just do the sub through there on Switch, because that would be so much easier.
Oh, yes. Yeah, like I said, everything that I've seen that people have done throughout the years to play this game, thank goodness, if you want to, that's all there. Those people are there for resources, but the ease of being able to get into it right now it's probably the easiest it'll ever get. I mean, you can't get, short of being completely in English, and here in the United States, it's being on Switch with a VPN. Yeah, you got a handheld system, no VPN needed, no knowledge of the language needed, no physical address, no way to convert money. It seems like this is the golden time to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's another reason why I started, is because it seemed like the easiest time it's ever been to get into it, and I've pretty much given up hope on it ever coming over in English. So it was just kind of like might as well get into it now. It's never going to be in English, and maybe it will one day, but I've pretty much given up hope on it completely.
Yeah, I mean, we're 8 years into it, so I mean, I could very easily see them bringing over in some fashion, but I don't think it'll ever be an MMO here, and we're never getting all 5 versions.
Yeah, I've actually kind of wondered before if because I remember reading at some point I didn't read it new at the time, but just it was new back in like 2012 or whenever, when Dragon Quest X was getting ready to release on the Wii, is that they said it was meant to last 10 years. And Final Fantasy XIV is kind of set up in a similar way, where there's definitely going to be an end date to when they're putting out like really new content for it. Like, I assume it's going to be like Final Fantasy XI, where servers stay up, but there's definitely an end to the game. And so part of me wonders if we will get some kind of English version once the game is done. Like, once they release the last version of it and stop putting out new content, if we'll get some kind of weird, like, streamlined offline version for it or something, maybe.
And then wasn't it like 2 years ago that a couple of producers were talked about that, like, oh, maybe we could just do an offline version of the version 1 or version 2 total.
Yep. And I held on to that for a while. I was like, yeah, maybe we'll get it. And then this year I was just like, that was like the last time I've heard them mention anything about 10, even the possibility of 10 being released in the West. So I was just like, it's now or never. Let's do this. Let's play 10.
Yeah, I mean, heck, other than the Die news that we got a week ago, we've had really no news on Dragon Quest in Japan or here for a good year and a half.
Yeah, it's been it has been a dry spell for sure.
Yeah. We saw young Eric and Mia, his sister, and we saw one drawing of that, and then what we hear this year? Oh, development's going slow.
Yep.
Don't expect anything else this year.
Yeah.
And to me, that just screams 2022 for the United States. Like,
yeah, between Monsters, them saying Monsters wasn't going well, the new one, and the main guy with the Builders spin-off games leaving the company, I'm just like, man, like, what? I'm kind of nervous about there being a good long stretch of like not having Dragon Quest content. I mean, like you said, Die is coming. Will we get into the West? Hopefully, but that's coming. We did get Dragon Quest of the Stars, I guess, and the Dragon Quest movie this year. But just in terms of, I mean, I know you and I both aren't super into those kind of mobile gacha games like that. So yeah, I'm definitely holding out hope that we'll get some nice big Dragon Quest announcement at some point before the end of the year. Maybe a sneak preview of something that I can just get really excited about.
Yeah, I mean, I know when we hear about stuff, it's still a year and a half out from us getting it usually.
Yeah.
So it's nerve-wracking a little bit, like kind of depressing that we have not heard a thing, because we don't even have anything to put on the 2022 calendar yet.
Yeah,
let
for
alone
sure.
the rest of this year and next year. Yeah. So I thought it was funny. Somebody messaged me last night that their favorite podcast had called their episode "Strash" after the announcement of the name for the die game. And he's like, "Oh, you should check it out. They put up a YouTube version." And I went through and I read the comments on YouTube, and there was like 2 or 3 people that on there were like, "Well, I've played all the Dragon Quest games, and da 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 da. That means nothing to me. Strash. Where do they pull out these stupid names?" And just weirdly, 2 weeks ago, I found all the Dragon Quest translated die stuff, and I've been working my way through, and if I believe the math that was at the end of the last chapter, it said I was 33.67% through reading the entire 347 volume set of it.
Wow.
And yeah, that word "strash" that was in there, it's in the manga too, and it's funny because the fan translators we're talking about, we don't really care what they call it, but the fan translators, I think on like the first 2 or 3 volumes over like 20 chapters, kept changing what they called it until they were calling it like air slash, and it's just a sword attack. Like, I got my sword attack. There's water strash, and there's earth strash, and there's fire strash. But they were going back and forth calling it slash and whatever. And then, I don't know, 10, 12 volumes or chapters or whatever into the manga, the people who are making it back in the 80s, whatever, 90s, they put in pages where they would just have a character page, like, hey, here's this character, and it looked like a Dragon Quest screen, like, here's his hit points, here's his strength, here's his abilities over here, here's the spells he can use, whatever. And a couple of them they actually translated into English over in Japan, and sure enough, it did translate into strash, which just simply means strong slash. So
okay, so it's strong slash.
Strong slash. Yep, it has no weird hidden meaning. It's just they took 2 words, smashed them together.
So, because we talked about that, we did like a day of kind of podcast on D2FM for the die stuff, and BJ like was just really railing against the name, and I didn't think it was a good name, but I was like, I have enough. I was telling him on there that I had enough faith that like it has something to do with like the lore or like combat or something from the game. And then around the time you told us on Twitter about the manga thing, and then around that same time I was getting stuff ready for the episode and like putting in like some screenshots that had been shared of the game, and I told BJ, I was like, zooming in right here on one of the combat screens, the attack it was called like lightning strash or something like that. So I was like, yeah, we should have just like looked more closely at the attacks, because at the time that episode was like, so we did it like, like literally just like right after we'd basically seen the stuff like one time, because we were trying to like do a day of thing. And so so then I saw that after that it's called strash in the game as well. It was because it was in English, like the attack was in English. It said lightning strash. And so I was like, okay, but I didn't realize it means strong slash. I mean, that makes sense now. So
yeah, it was, back in the 80s, that's just what they did. So it was funny too, because if you read the fan translated manga, some names change from chapter 1 through chapter 10. And then at some point they even say like, okay, we're going to actually not put out a couple of these manga we're going to take a couple of weeks off and actually read all the way to the end, because in Japan, just by the end, they'd had character stat sheets of all these things, and they put in English words on there. So yeah, the fan translators are, after about 10 chapters of going back and forth on some stuff, they're like, you know what, hold on, we're going to go read the rest, see what else that they put as an official English title, and then come back and keep translating.
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny. Yeah, it just on some blank pages, like books have a blank page, the reading through what the fan translators, they go through what their process was a little bit, and it's pretty cool. I've actually been trying to track them down for the past week and a half. Their email from way back in the day bounces back, and you know,
Yeah,
it was mainly two guys that did this when they were in college.
yeah, I had similar trouble sometimes with when I reached out to people for the Dragon Quest book, because either I think I only had one that bounced back, but the rest were like people were like didn't respond for like 2 weeks, and like lots of people would be like, oh sorry, this is like an old email, I still have it posted as my work email, and I just don't check it very regularly. And I do the same thing. So I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
I still, one of my emails I still use is like a terrible email address that I had in 4th grade, but I have different account stuff set up to it, and I'm too lazy to just like forward it to one of my newer emails that I use regularly now.
I even tried to get Sack Chief on it a little bit, because I mean, I still remember, I don't know if you've ever watched his YouTube video where he tracked down the guy who did like the box art for Dragon Warrior 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Have you ever listened to that one? And the guy's like, yeah, I don't remember doing that.
Yeah,
like, that was contract work 30 years ago. Someone said, I need a fantasy box art. There you go, fantasy box art.
Yeah, and I didn't realize he'd done like so much like Super Bowl artwork.
Yeah, it was an interesting.
Yeah.
It had almost nothing to do with Dragon Quest, because that guy didn't remember it, but it was interesting listening to that guy talk all about all the stuff he'd done.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it may be. And then when we talked to the fan translators, international people, and I remember that was like our 3rd episode ever of Slime Time. We talked to the people who recently translated Rocket Slime 3, and it was interesting talking to them. Those guys, they have really no interest in Dragon Quest.
Yep.
Yep, as a series, like, whatever, it's there. We just got together because we thought this game was cool, and we liked this game. So, like, okay, that was neat. And I was messaging Z6N4, the guy who translated Joker 3 and Terry's Wonderland 3DS. I was messaging him just last week, and he's still stuck on translating Dragon Quest Monsters 2. Or, I mean, honestly, from what he said, and he said it in the podcast, and he's actually got it all translated, it's all set, but there's like one little, there's somewhere in the code that locks off how many characters can be on screen at a time. And since English words are much longer than Japanese words, like, he can't fit things in. And he said, and then for Joker 3 and for the other one, we found it. We were able to like set it so it would just go to a next text box and the text would scroll. And I remember talking to the guys on Fan Translators International too. They had actually specifically mentioned that part of finding that, and yeah, he's still stuck on that. He's like, man, he goes, I look every now and then, and because I'm building a new PC and I'll have more time to look, but it is a needle in a haystack. He goes, I got everything translated, it just doesn't fit. Like, I can't say steel sword or whatever.
Yeah.
Because in Japanese, that's 4 characters. I need it to be 12.
Yep.
So, but he's kind of hard to get a hold of. I had to find the way to get back through there, and he asked me if I would like tweet out or put it on a couple Facebook groups, because that's just not what he does. He's not all over those places. But by golly, he's done a lot of good work for the Dragon Quest community, getting those games out. Speaking of people in the Dragon Quest community, did you meet up with anybody online when you've been playing Dragon Quest X?
I met up with Ryan Molina once, but only because he happened to see me online and asked me where I was and stuff. Like, he did all the legwork himself, and came and visited me in one of the Weddy towns. But I didn't know he was coming to do that at the time, and I was logging off, so I like caught just a little peek of him like in the building, and I think he managed to get at least a screenshot of it, and put it on Twitter and show it to me, where he got a picture of us together. But that's it. That's the only time I've ever met up with anybody that I know of online.
Did you do joining any parties or anything?
Well, by accident, I accidentally accepted. Somebody sent me a friend request, and I didn't know what it was, and I just hit yes, because I played it enough now, I can recognize the yes or no stuff. So I hit yes, and then all of a sudden I was in a party with these two other guys, and they were trying to talk to me. I couldn't talk to them because, I was playing the free trial version, so party chat was disabled. But I could just kind of see where they were trying to talk to me and say things all in Japanese, and I couldn't figure out how to leave the party or anything, and I got kind of like nervous and just like logged out of the game because I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, these guys want to go do something, and I don't know how to do it. So yeah. Other than that, though, I haven't. I'm more of a solo play kind of person. Like,
so definitely.
Like, and that's one thing I really like about 10 is that you can play it online, but you don't have to play it with other people. And it's not that I don't like the other people who play it, like I'd love to meet up with some people from time to time and do it, but just in terms of playing through the story and everything, that's something that I definitely just like doing kind of on my own time, like by myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always tell people, I've got people on the Dragon's Den that'll want to play Mario Kart or something, and I'm like, with my kids here and my wife asking me this, my wife asked me that, I put down games that I'm playing every 5 minutes and go do something, come back to it, and
Yep.
I had to really break that habit with Dragon Quest X, because I remember the first time that I just like quickly popped off the put it in suspend mode, set it down, came back 5 minutes later, and I'm like, oh yeah, you can't really do that with a online MMO.
Yep.
Got to go through the whole logging in process again, and oops.
Yeah, MMOs are definitely not a parent friendly game, especially with like younger kids, because it's a lot, because you can't pause it. It's just like you have to make sure teleport to like a safe zone or or something.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, I mean, I got to the point where I could remember to just set it down for a minute, go to the bathroom, and come back, and not hit that suspend button that I'm so used to. I do almost all my gaming with my 3DS. Shut the lid, my Vita, hit suspend the exact same way you do with the Switch, and like that was like one of the I gotta be careful with that. Mm-hmm. Don't do that. So how many hours do you think you have in the game right about now?
Mm-hmm. Right now, actually, I checked it this morning before we recorded this, and it says I am at 50 hours or more now. So
okay.
And I know the Switch is kind of inaccurate with that kind of stuff sometimes, but I feel like that's probably pretty accurate in my case with Dragon Quest X. I don't feel like I've played it too much more than 55 hours. And like I said, I'm in the beginning parts of 2.0, so I haven't played it too much. I think I got to the end of 1.0. I think it said at 35 hours or more is what my Switch was saying.
That's almost exactly where mine was. Mine says, in game it says 34, and that's kind of where I am. Okay.
I don't even know how to check it in game, actually. I didn't realize there was a way to check it in game.
There is, and I couldn't even tell you. It was just some menu I came across.
Yeah, maybe when you save it or something, or like when you log in.
That may be with the login.
Yeah.
Either that, or it's that bottom right settings thing from the main menu. When you're in the game. I've kind of like looked at those different things because there's a lot buried in there, but I don't know half of them.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to check that out sometime. I didn't realize there was a way to check that in game, but yeah, I kind of skimmed over some of that like system menu, I think is what it translates into, where it's just kind of like some technical aspects about the game that I don't necessarily keep up with.
Yeah, all the stuff that I know that I would probably mess something up if I played around with that too much. Nothing translates too well.
Yeah.
So, any last thoughts? Any last thoughts about Dragon Quest X and its MMO capabilities, or anything else you've done in game that you liked?
Yeah, just in terms of an MMO, I think it's a good MMO for people like me and you, who like that solo play aspect of it better.
Definitely.
I think it works well as an MMO, or seems to, from what I've seen, just in terms of some of the like, the hiring party members, I think is cool. There's like some cool things that I haven't necessarily seen in other MMOs that exist in Dragon Quest X that I think are really cool. I still think there's a lot of just like, it seems to take forever to get places. I feel like they could make traveling a bit easier in Dragon Quest X.
Oh my gosh, it's a walking simulator half the time.
Yeah. I mean, I got really tired of that and just trying to find return stones. I wish they just implemented zoom like in so many other games where you just once you visit somewhere you can zoom back to it. That would have been kind of like my ideal way of traveling around in this game. And I haven't done much with housing because you can get your own house in 10. And that's one of the things that I want to do once I unlock the market board and everything is kind of spend some money and try to like decorate a house for really no reason at all other than just having it. I definitely, I'm sure some of the things I like about it have probably been patched in since the original release of the game to kind of streamline the content of 1.0 and make it easier. But I mean, I don't know what it was like back in 2012 on the Wii, so it's kind of hard for me to tell what has been patched in and what was always there. But definitely judging it from like a 2020 perspective, I think it's a really well put together MMO. I still think I would like it better if it was just a solo adventure, like the other Dragon Quest games.
I completely agree. I see this. I mean, you see the similarities with Dragon Quest 9.
Yeah,
it definitely like 9 seems like it worked up. They tested a lot of things in 9 and then made those work maybe even better or in an MMO setting for 10. And to me, I look at 10 on the Switch and I'm like, gosh, they have all these art assets out there. Can't they just remake 9 with these assets from 10? And
yeah, that'd be awesome.
They obviously know how to make it on the Switch, so I mean, just stick it on a cart and let's go. I mean, you've got the story, you've got the systems. It really could work that well. And yeah, I mean, I think 10 could work very well as a standalone because I think a lot of the they must be improvements, like wearing the angel slime hat that gives you 3 times the experience. And the fact that I know it says like, oh, you're not level 80. Okay, you can hire these people here at the place for free.
Yeah, that and the difficulty setting for bosses is another thing I'm fairly certain was patched in.
Oh, I can imagine. I can't believe that was there 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, all those things. Again, it's a great time to play it for Western fans.
Yeah, for sure.
And for Japanese people that are just starting, I'm sure it's a good time for you because it looks like they're letting you. I mean, we're getting 2 versions worth of content for free at this point.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, here I am 55 hours in and I haven't had to pay for anything yet, which is like insane.
Oh yeah, I'm about to review a game for RP Gamer. Like it's a $10 game on Steam and it lasted all of 2.5 hours.
Yep.
It's kind of one reason I picked it. I was like, oh, I'm going on vacation soon. I'll review something I can beat in an
hour. Yep.
And then I was like, wow, I'm glad. I don't know what I would have been glad to pay $10 for 2.5 hours of content, but not that or much more because I'll just go play Dragon Quest 10 for free for a while more.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, that's it for this episode of Slime Time. Thank you so much, Austin, for joining me to talk about the Japanese-only title, Dragon Quest's own MMO. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Go ahead and tell everybody a bit where they can get a hold of you online. I'm going to throw it all in the show notes, too. And tell us where we can find you and some of the things you talked about.
Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter at DragonQuestin. I also co-host Dragon Quest FM, which is on Twitter at Dragon Quest FM. And then my fairly weekly, pretty much regular Dragon Quest blog is at DragonQuestAustin.com. And that's where I have a lot of the Dragon Quest X stuff I've kind of mentioned today. And hopefully even more stuff. When this episode goes up, I'll have some more stuff up there as well. And then hopefully my Dragon Quest book is coming out pretty soon. So you can find out more information on that on my Twitter account, or I'll be posting about that kind of stuff at DragonQuestAustin.com.
All right. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, you might have noticed that the only time that we ever mention Patreon on Slime Time is when we say we don't use Patreon. We're just longtime fans that want to speak about the game series we know and love so much. If you do have some money you'd like to donate, consider sliding on over to the Dragon's Den at www.woodus.com/den and click on the button that says support this site. Woodus has owned and maintained the Dragon's Den, Dragon Quest fan site, for over 20 years, and I'm sure he would appreciate any donation. If you don't want to straight up donate, you could use all of his different Amazon affiliate links there to make purchases. Dragon Quest XI-S is there, perhaps Dragon Quest VII 3DS, pretty much everything in the past 5 years that has been released and is on Amazon new, you can buy through the Amazon affiliate link and some small fraction of that will go to helping out the Dragon's Den. If you have any comments or questions for us, you can find us on Twitter at Palladium3, or you want to say something to Liam at Rimu Celestrian. I'd never say that right. Good thing he always says that. You could always hit us both up simultaneously at DQ Slime Time. Consider joining in tons of Dragon Quest discussions at the Dragon's Den forums, one of the few remaining Dragon Quest forums still around on the net. You can always find that at the main page, www.woodies.com/forums. If you want to skip the main page, I know I'm always there. I'm posting translation news, or been talking about Die recently, and lots of other good stuff. I want to always take a moment, like always, to thank everyone that makes this podcast possible, like Brian, aka Woodis, for his support of the series and this podcast, and keeping the Dragon's Den's lights on for decades. Thanks to Amanda Lepre and the Descendants of Erdrick for allowing us to use their music for our podcast. Descendant of Erdrick is a video game tribute band from Austin, Texas. If you like what you heard at the beginning and end of the show, please check them out and their most recent album, Advent, at www.descendantsoferdrick.com, or on Twitter at DOFErdrick, or go see their band leader, Amanda Lepre, live. She's usually on tour as a guitarist with Andrew WK. Once all this settles down in the United States, I'm sure they'll be out again. Thanks to Dwayne Bullock, our wonderful graphic artist and Dragon Quest fan, for making the awesome artwork cover for this podcast. Dwayne was on the original iteration of Slime Time Podcast, and he's been on a few of our episodes since we've been recording this past year. You can check out more of his work at Dwayne Art on Instagram, or his website at dwaynebullockart.bigcartel.com. And if you're looking for more Dragon Quest podcasts, check out our earlier episodes on Dragon's Den, Anchor FM, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and more. Please also feel free to check out fellow Dragon Quest podcasts available like Puff Puff Hour and Dragon Quest FM. That brings us to a close, so bye everyone. This is DQ Slime Time, sliming off.